to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today, I have my friend from Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Jacob Ninan. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, brother. Doing good. How about you?
Doing good, man. Jacob, are you from Atlanta originally or from somewhere else?
Actually, I was born in Atlanta. A lot of people say they're from Atlanta, but I was literally born in the city limits of Atlanta. So, yeah.
Okay. I was born in Atlanta, too. How about that?
Really?
Yes, sir.
I'll never guess that.
Yeah, nobody would think about that, right? So the thing is, when I was born, my dad and my mom and dad were going to college over there. And my grandfather, my mother's father, was the one paying for their tuition and their apartment and all that. This is in 1978. So at that Christmas, they went back to Venezuela for Christmas break, and something happened there where the power of the local currency was devalued against the dollar. And I think my grandfather lost some businesses at the time, and they had to stay back there. So that's why I grew up in Venezuela.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was just born there. That's it. And honestly, I don't know if I could handle living in Atlanta because of all the trees and it's so green, right? My allergies, I think they will kill me if I was there. But
yeah, people think Atlanta like big city or whatever, but as far as the city is concerned, I mean, it has a lot of green space, even to this day, even though it's developed a lot. So, yeah.
I remember the first time I landed in Atlanta, all I saw was like trees and trees. And I was like, man, I've never seen so many trees in my life, right? and as I'm driving around the city, I noticed that there's trees everywhere. I mean, it's I guess the soil is so fertile, you know, and pine trees and things of that nature. So now, have you ever moved somewhere else, or you just grew up and that was it? Atlanta is the place.
No, I was born in Atlanta, raised outside like suburbs of Atlanta, south of Atlanta. But I mean, where I grew up, the majority of my life, 20 minutes outside of downtown Atlanta. So, and now, of course, I live in North Atlanta, or we call Northwest Atlanta, but I'm probably about 45 minutes north of the city. But yeah, I've never lived outside of kind of Atlanta metropolitan or Georgia in general.
I've done deals in Atlanta. Now let's talk about, you graduated high school in Atlanta, I'm going to assume, right? Or the suburbs or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do afterwards?
So funny enough, not to get too deep into the personal story, but I had a kid on the way when I was 18. My girlfriend, now wife, was pregnant at the time in my senior year. So graduated high school, didn't have a clue what I was going to do. Actually was sleeping on one of my best friend's couch at the time, because I had moved out of my house, and got a phone call like early in the morning, woke me up. I had been up partying the night before, and got a phone call from my uncle, who said, "Hey, do you want a job?" I was like, "Absolutely," which was at a dealership. So in the automotive world. So basically maybe a month after high school, straight into the automotive world. Was working shipping and receiving as an 18-year-old, essentially a kid at that time. And, up until I got into real estate, was in some form of an automotive field up until that point.
So how long were you in the automotive field for?
So let's see. Went in when I was 18, and I full-time left W-2 when I was 35.
Oh, yeah. So that's a whole lifetime of work.
Yep.
17 years.
18 years, 17, 18 years.
Yeah, 17 years in the autumn. Now, did you sell cars while you were there, or just worked in the background?
No, I was on the parts and service side. Eventually, I transitioned from being at a dealership to collision shops, like body shops, where I worked my way up the corporate ladder and was in corporate management, managing shops, stuff like that. Which definitely, I I don't regret any of that. I mean, it prepared me for what I'm doing now in terms of managing teams, knowing how to manage people and lead teams. So it was a huge bonus being able to do that, lead a shop, understanding P&Ls, financials, teams, hiring, mentoring, coaching, that kind of stuff. Um, so it did, a lot of that did help translate to real estate as far as the business side of things go.
So what got you into real estate?
So real estate was literally not on my radar. The extent of my knowledge of real estate was buying my first home. Like I went through buying a personal home, and that's all I knew about real estate. It wasn't on my radar. My mindset was still the only way to get through this life is to continue to level up in the corporate ladder, keep trying to go up the corporate ladder in management. But my sister was, she was a teacher. So she was looking, quickly found out that teaching wasn't something she wanted to do forever. And she had started venturing off into different things. And real estate was one of the things that she had come across. She actually came across wholesaling first. She tried to explain it to me. I was, didn't make any sense to me. And I was like, yeah, doesn't sound legal. I don't want to
It's
do
a
that.
scam.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, that sounds like a scam. Good luck. Have a nice day. Anyway, she tried her hand at that. Can't really recall how successful or not she was with it, but ultimately she ends up coming to me saying, "Hey, we should flip houses." Um, of course, everybody loves HGTV and Fix or Flip or whatever those millions of shows that we all watched. So I watched those shows. So when she brought that up to me, I was like, "Oh, that'd be amazing." So she brought the concept up to me. And then from that point, I just went into research mode, watching podcasts, YouTube, reading books, anything and everything I could to just get free information. And I mean, I learned a good bit. I learned the gist of it, so to speak. And I was listening to a podcast. I don't even remember which podcast it was or who the guest was, but I just remember him saying something along the lines of some kind of like rule of five. Like if you're around someone for 5 minutes, that they should know what you do, and then they should also know how they can help you do what you do. So I just started telling people, hey, we're a cash buyer. I got to learn the lingo. We're looking for houses to buy for cash, and ended up getting our first deal that way just through our network, like friends and family that ended up being, hey, we know somebody that's selling a house, kind of thing.
Those have been some of the best deals I've done, actually. The ones that come from my friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember I did a deal in San Antonio that was brought up by a buddy of mine that was with me in the Navy years ago. I mean, this is more than 20 years ago. And he knew I was in the business. So he called me up and said, "Hey, man, I got this property. It's tangled up with a bunch of heirs, and I can't really get them all on the same, page so they can sign and sell. This guy wants more money than the other one." And so I said, "No problems. Looks like that's a challenge for me to solve, right?" So I went and stepped in. It was 26 heirs. It was very challenging.
Wow.
Yeah. And now there's two parts to this deal. The first, this is in 2019. So we all remember what happened in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a closing already scheduled for that property, and the assignment was $140,000. But guess what happened? COVID came in,
Mm-hmm.
and the buyer pretty much said, "Ricardo, I can't." And the buyer was a friend of mine. He's like, "Bro, I can't close on this thing. I don't know what the world is, what's going to happen with the world. Like I don't even know if I can work on this property." And so, long story short, we terminated the agreement. He forfeited the earnest money. He had put in $10,000 actually for that deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "All right, I guess I'll go find me another one." Well, that didn't happen for another year and a half. Um, and later on, we ended up making like 40, something like that. But I mean, the market had completely changed. ARVs were different. The pool of buyers weren't the same. People were still scared from COVID. And then I had another friend that, just because he's watching me on Facebook or Instagram, calls me one day. We worked together in the oil field, and said, "Hey, man, I got a property my wife inherited, and she wants nothing to do with it." And that's like music to my ears. And so we ended up making $55,000 on that. That was actually this year. So to me, those are the best deals when they're referred by somebody that's in your network, because, like you said, you're putting yourself out there saying, hey, I'm a cash buyer, I can do this, I can solve challenges that other people can't, which on my both of my friends' cases, they each had a challenge. One is that he couldn't get his 26 heirs, to be on the same page. I did that, and then because I'm a stranger now, it's like it's a complete different person. I have no interest on the property other than to buy it, and then on the other case, his wife didn't want anything to do with the property. Like she didn't want to move a box, nothing, and that
Yeah.
property was full of stuff, right? So I was like, don't worry about it, we'll take care of that. So needless to say, in two deals like that, we almost made 100 grand. Um, so you bought your first deal from your network. What happened? This is what year is this, Jacob? You remember around what time frame?
It's around mid-late 2018.
So okay, so that's about 7 years ago
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Um, how do you grow after that? Like what do you do to continue to like stay engaged and make a full-time living out of it? Because it's not just do one deal and say, okay, I quit, I'm out. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way.
No. So I will preface it with this: like the job I had, the W-2 I had, I made great money. Like I made deep six figures. So it wasn't as simple. Like making 30, 50, 60 grand on a flip or a wholesale deal is great. Like especially in the timeline that you can do it. But one of those deals clearly wasn't enough for me to walk away from my job and the life that my family was accustomed to, because that's one thing I used to always say is I never want to sacrifice my family's quality of life for my dream kind of thing. And as a man and someone that's a provider in a family, man, you kind of have to think that way because I had built a certain type of life for them up to this point. But yeah, we did that deal. I mean, it was kind of crazy just to make that kind of money off of doing a deal, but we quickly realized in order for us to continue to do this, we had to have a pipeline or a funnel. At that point, we were doing no direct to seller marketing. We didn't even really understand that part of the business, but we did understand who wholesalers were and things like that. So we tapped into that network with agents and wholesalers where, the typical getting on Facebook groups and making comments or posting your email and stuff like that. And yeah, quickly landed on, I don't know, hundreds of wholesalers lists and started getting more deals that way. Now, granted, we were doing one deal at a time. We weren't this huge operation where we could go buy 10 houses at one time. So we also ran into the problem of we'd market ourselves heavily amongst the community. We need a house. We'd get a house and then we'd go cold or silent because we didn't have any more money to do another project. And we'd be all in on that project for 3 to 6 months. And then when we were getting ready to list it, we'd be like, oh, we need to start ruffling feathers again and try to find another deal. But ultimately we got, like you mentioned about COVID, that whole business model and plan kind of got wiped out when COVID hit. We took on a project that was just way too big for our experience level. Cause by that time we'd done like 3 or 4 flips and just thought we were like flipper extraordinaire. Like we knew everything that we needed to know. Took on a large flip that we, added a story to and extended like 30 feet. It was pretty big project. And COVID hit. It was in the city limits of Atlanta. So municipality wise, like shut down, couldn't get a hold of anybody. End up finding out our contractor was screwing us. It was a different contractor than we had normally used because the one we normally used wasn't willing to do a project that big. So we ended up using this guy, find out he did all this work and never pulled permits. We're talking about foundation was done, framing done, roof was on, like no permits ever pulled. Thankfully, a friend of mine who's a general contractor license, he ended up kind of bailing us out and helping us. We were able to get the inspections done. Eventually got a hold of people at the county and the inspections. They passed all the inspections, but by that time, we'd been eaten up in rehab costs and interest that we ended up just selling it to someone else, and we took a loss on it. As a result of that loss, my sister she was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. In the background, the wholesaling thing had started to intrigue me a lot. And my story is kind of funny because most people start off wholesaling and then go to flipping, whereas I was going from flipping and transitioning and thinking about more so wholesaling. So anyway, I'd done a ton of research about that, was starting to get the concepts down, started to figure marketing out, and ended up just switching my whole operation to wholesaling with, Robert, my brother, Robert. But we ended up flipping all over to wholesale and just kind of never looked back. From that, it went from having a flipping operation where you were limited by your capital to having a wholesaling operation where it didn't matter how many properties you contracted, as long as there were deals, you could move them. You didn't necessarily need capital to do that. So the floodgates kind of opened. And we did that for quite some time before he and I decided to get back into flipping. So now we do a mix of those things. So, yeah, I mean, we'll never not wholesale, but wholesaling for sure kind of changed my life and my trajectory with being able to tap into the marketing. It taught me how to become a good marketer. And that was the biggest thing that I can say, is because now I have the ability to go find deals when I need to, depending on what type of marketing I do.
Right. So when was the time, like, because you eventually transitioned from a full-time W-2 to a real estate investor, right? When do you make that decision?
So officially, I've been out of my W-2 now for right at 2 years. But I had been, anybody that's listening to this knows that once they get bit by the real estate bug, like, you're planning your exit, or at least dreaming about your exit, not long after you see that you can make money doing this. So from the time we flipped our first property and got the check and made the money, in my mind, the wheels started turning. Like, I've got to do this full time. I can't work a job anymore. So I still have performed at a high level in my job, but every day I was there, I was like, I have to be gone, So to say I started planning, I'd say I'd started dreaming of it first, and then started really planning once the wholesale operation took off and we started consistently close deals. So that was probably, I got really serious about that in probably 2021, somewhere mid 2021. And like I said, I left March 22, I think. I'm trying to get, my dates are getting jumbled up here, or March 23. So yeah, going on almost 2 years. But yeah, we just put a plan in place to replace myself, replace Robert. I left first, and Robert came and joined me maybe a few months later. But we just found ourselves in a position where, regardless of us wanting to not be in full-time jobs anymore, we realized we were costing ourselves money by having a job. So we had reached that point where it's like, if we don't leave, we're going to just hold this operation back and not be able to fully grow it to what we want it to be. So
Now, what when you left the job, the W-2, and became a full-time investor, now, how did that team look like? Like, what were the things that you had in place that allow you to make that transition?
So I was blessed, definitely, in the regard that, like I said before, I made great money. Robert was making great money. So we had the ability to hire certain people in our operation before we left the job. So we had cold callers in place. We were doing heavy cold calling for some of our marketing back then. So we had virtual assistants that were doing all the calling while we were working our jobs. Being a manager, I had some flexibility. I was still focused on my job, but I still had flexibility, like lunch breaks and things like that, to go follow up on leads, and schedule appointments for later in the day. At the time, I was still doing all the acquisitions just in the evenings after my shift, or on weekends. But that's when it became a real problem, because it was like, when you get a lead, you got to react. It's what do they always say, like, time is the killer of all deals. So it's like, you needed to get that lead, qualify it, set the appointment, go on it, or whatever. Because we were doing an in-person model, and some of it was, virtual. We were doing some virtual stuff, but just even virtual, it's like, if I got a lead at 2 p.m., I wasn't going to be able to call that lead until like 6. And that 4 hours, some other investor could have got a hold of them and already put them under contract. And we had that kind of stuff happen. And that's what really made us understand, like, man, we got to get out of this, or we're going to be losing deal after deal. But right before we left, I'd hired an acquisitions manager. And honestly, before that, our timeline probably would have been a little bit longer. But when I hired the acquisitions guy who was able to work the leads like immediately, everything took off. Like we I'd say tripled the amount of contracts we were locking up and deals we were doing, and it just made it a really easy. Like, okay, for sure, I'm leaving. Like the money's good, everything's rolling. I need to leave so I can help coach him, train him better, and maybe even expand our marketing, and even I work leads and work acquisitions. But shortly after I left, we were able in a position to go ahead and hire our second acquisitions guy. But again, the VAs having a team that was able to work these leads, and then an acquisitions guy was really what catapulted us into being able to leave and go to this full time.
Those VAs, were those my guys, or you had a different company at the time?
Well, this is before you and I even knew each other.
Okay.
At this point, I think we met not long after that. I came to an Attend Growth event with Shane
Yeah.
out in Texas, but we had hired these people before that. One of them is still with us, but the rest is your team now. But yeah, I can't even remember the name of the company. I don't even think they're in business
No, it's
anymore.
okay.
That we contracted these three. What they weren't directly employed by us, but they were, through a third
Yeah,
party.
they're through an agency.
Yeah.
Um,
I can go into a whole story about that agency and how they jacked that up, but I'm not trying to call
no,
out.
no, no. We don't need to mention that.
Yeah.
It happens, right? Like sometimes, agencies, like we tend to supervise the people that are working for you, because I believe that my job as an agency, when I place one of my team members on your team, is to help you make more money. It's that simple, right? So if those guys are not doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, because maybe in your operation, you don't have a supervisor that's supervising those guys. You're just waiting for the leads, or whatever the case. I gotta make sure those leads are produced, and that they're actually doing the amount of dials we're promising on doing, and all that. So it happens more than often where I see, and I see also it happened with us. We had a good guy working on your team, and all of a sudden he just turned into shit, literally, like ego and things of that nature get on the way. So, but we were able to spot it right away and said, hey man, this guy, I think we're gonna get rid of him, because he, unfortunately, something happened to him where he changed his behavior, and his and I can't allow him to drop the ball on you and us. So we ultimately let him go, right? But long story short, that happens a lot, especially if some people don't have a way to supervise them, which I'm not saying that's your case, but it happens.
Well,
Now,
I'll speak to that a little bit. So something I had to learn, as most of us, people like you who are experienced with certain things like that can tell us things, but some of us still have to go through it to really believe it, or not even so much believe it, but understand it. But I went through building a cold calling team, and they're all on my payroll to, working with you guys. And the thing that I had to come to the realization was I'm a real estate investor. I'm focused on sales and marketing. I'm not a cold call operation. I'm not a call center operator, all those things. So it's like although we were in control, it was kind of a control freak problem. We were in control of it and could see everything, but it was like I was spending time on managing a cold call team instead of spending time on managing an acquisitions team, or managing our marketing, or looking at where, leads are coming from, the things that actually are going to make me money, versus managing people to do the cold calling or whatever. So it was like, once I came to that realization, it was like, look, we're going to, Ricardo, your team do this. This is, you're telling me what to expect. This is what we're expecting from you. Of course, you guys communicate with us. And Robert more so handled the back end kind of stuff.
yeah,
But we were able to just focus on leads. Like, I could have all the data I wanted. You could, we could hop on a call, or you'd send us a report and we knew what was going on. But really, all we had to focus on is, hey, we need X leads a day or week or whatever, and you guys are making it happen as long as we're giving you what you need from us. But it flipped in my head. I'm like, I'm not a call center. I'm not a cold caller operation. I use it as a means to fuel my business. So once we did that and started letting you guys focus on that, things started blossoming from there. And we've used that in all forms of marketing now. Like, hey, instead of us being the ones that do it, make sure we trust who we're using. They got good references and stuff like that. But let's focus on what we're good at, and that's doing deals and wholesaling and flipping houses.
I love it. Now, you mentioned you've done fix and flips, and shout out to Shane Ninan. I think he was watching the video for a minute, or maybe he's still online. You mentioned you guys wholesale, flip. Are you guys doing any rentals or any owner finance or contract for deed, things of that nature?
So we do a lot of novations, which is kind
Okay.
of a buzzword. But we do a lot of that, which the easiest way I know to explain that to people that don't really know, it's kind of like an on market form of wholesaling. I won't go too deep into that. If you want to know what that is, get on YouTube and type it. You'll see 1,000 videos on it. Actually, my interest got piqued, and the reason we even ventured off into that was because we attended one of your events where Corey Gary, he was there. So yeah, that's what ended up kind of leading me down that path to adding that to our operation. But yeah, fix and flip, your traditional assignments, wholesales, double close type things, novations. We have some rentals. We're not huge fans of it. Obviously, I know it's necessary for tax write-offs and stuff like that. So we kind of do the rental thing out of necessity more so than we love it. But what we've been transitioning to more is seller financing, just because it's easier to scale, even with the rates being where they've been, because you're putting a higher rate on your end user. It's a little bit easier and faster to scale. You're still using kind of the Burr model to institute it, but you're just able to have more success because of the gap of interest between what you're getting a note for and what you're giving it to your end user for. So we're doing a lot of that more lately. But yeah, back to shout out to Shane. I don't want to be on this podcast and not shout him out. As far as wholesaling is concerned, he was a big influence on me and kind of shifting my mindset and perspective on that, because he was already running a very successful wholesaling operation. So he definitely held my hand through a lot of that early on wholesaling. So, but yeah, wholesaling, fix and flip, innovation, seller finance, some rentals. As far as our direct operation is, we kind of do all of those things.
What do you enjoy the most out of what the multiple lanes that you guys are involved with?
I mean, truthfully, if I'm doing 10 or so deals a month, if they could all be wholesales, I'd be super happy. Just because the cash conversion cycle, I mean,
It's quicker.
yeah, it's way faster. The skin in the game, I mean, as anybody knows, it's not my money on the line. I mean, obviously, I have money invested in a team and marketing, but it's not like I've got $10,000 EMD on the line, or I bought a property and the market shifted and now I don't know what I'm going to be able to sell it for. All these things. Obviously, there's calculated risk being a flipper. I always tell people all the time when they ask me about it, it's like, wholesaling to me is less risky, but it's harder. But flipping is more risky and easier. But once you understand wholesaling and you start to figure out how to get these leads, I would much rather wholesale everything. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, especially in our market with how competitive it is. Just a basic example: if a flipper could pay up to 200 grand, I need to come in and get it for 170 or 180 or 190 to have a gap on a profit. So in that regard, it's a little bit more difficult, but that really just comes down to how well you work your sales process, your team, how they're able to build rapport and things like that. But yeah, if I could do one strategy all the time consistently and every deal, I would much rather do wholesaling.
I'm the same way. I started as a landlord, actually. So I bought, rehabbed, and then rented because that's the only thing I could do. Like it's like 2008, 2009. You couldn't flip a house. And then I went to flipping. Well, I had a W-2, so I had a W-2 for many years, and I did that on the side, always on the side, until I got laid off. And then I was like, "Oh, I gotta figure a way out to leave out of this now." So what I did is I scaled flipping, and then something happened where I had to scale wholesaling. I didn't even like wholesaling. I didn't like wholesalers at all, man. I didn't like him because I didn't understand it. I mean, I understood the mechanics behind it, where okay, the guy put it on the contract and he's selling the contract over to me for a fee, and I would see these fees 20,000, 30,000, and I was like, man, this guy is not leaving enough meat on the bone for me.
Yeah.
But what I didn't understand was all the work he was putting behind it, right? Because the moment I became a wholesaler, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I know why these guys are making 20 and 30 grand is because, they got a marketing machine behind them, whether they were running bandit signs or, they have cold callers or texters or whatever. That costs money
Oh yeah.
and time, especially when I started in real estate. It was all about bandit signs. I mean, you would see bandit signs everywhere. Well, a bandit sign costs roughly at the time, I think it was like $1 with the stakes and everything, right? And then you have to have a runner to go put out all the signs. So if you're doing 2,000 bandit signs in the city, that's $2,000
Yeah.
plus the runner. You're now talking about 3,000 or 4,000, and then you got inbound calls coming in, and so at the end of the day, those guys were putting a lot of money because you could see the bandit signs everywhere. That has drastically dropped because the city is after those guys, and they're putting some hefty fines. And I ran bandit signs at some point, and I remember that the cops were calling me on Monday. You gotta come pick up all these signs, son. Otherwise, we're gonna give you a $50 fine. But when I understood that wholesaling, the wholesalers were putting either a lot of time and efforts into the marketing portion of it and money, that's when I said, okay, I now understand why they got to make so much money. Now, thinking about you guys do fix and flips, and I've seen your flips. What 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 is a typical flip for you? Like, what is the process that you use to rehab a property, for instance?
So we're very specific on what we flip. We don't flip all over Atlanta. We only flip on the south side of Atlanta for a couple of reasons. A, our crew's down there. B, it's where we grew up, so we have a really, really good understanding of that market down there. And just the price point. We've always had really good success flipping homes 300,000 or less. For Atlanta or Atlanta Metro, if you get in Atlanta or north of Atlanta, the value can drastically increase over that amount. But we just always looked at it as like being down there, the price point, it moved a lot faster. Our private money and our lending that we have goes a lot further. I can buy, 3 or 4 of these properties and make about the same amount of money that I could and buy like 2 up on the north side. So that's kind of our mindset on there. We're pretty hard set on that. We don't typically do anything outside of that. But as far as the process, our team now, we have a project manager who handles it all. Because at the end of the day, like, I love seeing the transformation. It's cool. It makes for great content. People love to see it. That's why I got into this anyway, because I would watch HGTV and thought, oh, this is so cool. So it captivates everyone. But as far as the actual process and being a part of it, I'm very limited on that. You would not want me making the decisions or renovations, because that's just not who I am. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a process driven person. I'm not a handyman. So basically the way it works is, I'm more so on the funding side and making sure things get funded. But my team handles that. We essentially have a blueprint, so to speak, with these houses. Most of everything we're buying is a 3-1, sometimes a 3-2. And we're going in and basically doing the same thing every time. We're putting a little twist on it. But I like to tell people all the time, boring is scalable. A lot of people like to make things like so creative, and creativity is awesome, right? But it's usually the boring, repetitive things that are most scalable and most profitable. And once you do that, you can really create a process out of it that becomes very predictable. So with these homes, we're doing really, I mean, you've seen them. They're nice. They're not like marble or anything, but they're nice finishes. They're probably the best house in the neighborhood, but we're doing it in a way that it makes sense for the budget. We're not overdoing it. And we'll have, our project manager, he knows, he's got a good eye for this stuff. He's creative. He'll go in and add a little bit of character here and there, because if there's 3 houses being flipped in the neighborhood, and we all go on market at the same time, we do want to stand out a little bit. So we do little, creative things to stand out, but nothing that kind of kills the budget. But yeah, I mean, anybody can follow me and look at our flips. They're pretty standard as far as that's concerned.
We our process when we were doing in 2017, Dennis and I were doing about 50 projects at a time. And
Yeah, we're not there.
yeah, so imagine 47 rehabs and having to design each one of them, right? Not in our book. Like what we did was same exterior color, same paint color, same tile for the roof. It was a 30-year shingle, certain teeth, gray. Like we had very specific. Even our roofer didn't even have to think about what color do you want the roof. No, no, it's the same gray.
Yeah.
It's just, and the cabinets were the same color. The backsplash was the same. The granite was the same. Sometimes the things that we will change was like the tile and like the vinyl flooring, which we didn't use vinyl at the time. We used laminate, and we will change the colors because we would just aim for what we can get the cheapest one. We were focused also on those type of properties that you mentioned: 2 1s, 3 1s, 3 2s. Sometimes we'll do a 4 2. But the ARVs on our properties max were 300 grand. So, we're on the lower end of the scale when it comes to the fix and flips. And then we will flip houses that if we couldn't sell them, we would keep them for rentals. And it was already flipped for a rental grade, but it was like a very nice house for a rental grade because it's got all brand new laminate, it's got granite. We make sure that these properties weren't going to give us a lot of headaches moving forward. And we focused also on the mechanics first, foundation, AC, electrical, plumbing, and the roof. And once those 5 things were done, the cosmetics were easy for us because we didn't have to pick and choose. Like we knew exactly what vanities we're putting on the bathroom. We knew exactly what mirror is going on that bathroom. So they were very boring, like you said. We quit taking pictures years ago on our properties because they all look the same. If you look at the bathroom, it's the same bathroom. It's like I don't see the difference in between 123 Main Street and 5678 Main. They're both the same. But that's what allowed us to scale at the time, and also all the leftovers we put them on a warehouse. So our office was on a warehouse, and sometimes we will pick these little bitty houses, like 700, 800 square feet houses. And man, all those leftovers, we will literally rehab a house with leftover materials. So that's one of the things we did to kind of like scale the flipping operation.
Yeah, we definitely save the leftovers. We do the same thing. We don't have a warehouse, but our project manager has a storage facility that we use, and so yeah, we do the very same thing. But it's like you said, it's the boring thing that becomes more scalable. So yeah, but to the buyer, they walk in, it's a fully rehabbed house. It looks beautiful. They love it. But we have generally the same options, like 3 different floorings we might use. The vanities, we're going to the same place, getting that stuff. Yeah, it's all generally the same stuff, So to everyone else, it just looks like a new rehab property, which is fine, But that's we generally use the same process. It's just it's okay to be creative. It's okay to want to do these really cool things. I'd say it's probably more important on like the higher end stuff. But what I wanted to convey to my team and like Robert and everybody else was, I'm not trying to create a job for myself. Like the reason I'm in real estate is to have some freedom. And although flipping is time consuming, I'm not trying to make myself a designer. Like I didn't quit my job to become an interior designer. So that's why we're just very predictable in that manner. So our guys know generally like we're going to pick one of these 3 things. If they're not sure how to make the call, they could hit up one of us and on a FaceTime or something like, hey, should we do this, or this? And you're like, all right, go with this, So basically just trying to be as cost effective, but quality as possible.
How many rehabs do you guys handle at a time?
We don't do anywhere near that many. Typically we're like right now we're in the middle of 4. Well, one we just sold, and we got 3 ongoing. So we typically somewhere 3 to 5 is what our goal is.
Okay.
We don't typically try to do more than that. We have in terms of size of our team. Initially, I wanted to scale up and be huge, and then I realized, well, the bigger you get, you're making about the same amount of money because of overhead. So we decided to keep our team somewhat smaller, and that way we don't have to do as much volume, but we're still making as much, if not more, money with less stress. So because we are heavy on wholesaling and novations and the other strategies, we don't necessarily have to do so many flips to keep cash turning. So that's why we've just never decided to go any bigger. Also, with market shifts, I just don't want to be holding 10, 20 properties at a time when it could only be like 3 or 5 that I maybe have to, somehow shift to a seller finance or a rental, and it not be such a big deal if I have to leave a little bit in the deal. So that's just our vision has changed on that. We initially wanted to be a huge operation, and then decided, hey, it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's what bite me in the ass pretty much, because we had 47 rehabs when Harvey hit Houston, and our complete market shifted, and we lost all of our workforce, and it was just a bunch of drama, But
Yeah.
Now I thought about it sometimes. Should I get back into it? But the answer is no. If I would get back into fixing flipping, it'll probably be 1 or 2 at a time. That's it, and then, and you're right, the freedom. So when I was doing all those rehabs, I was not free at all. I had to be raising private money all the time. I had to go and check on the rehabs all the time. I remember in 1 year, I think it was 2016, I put 120,000 miles on the truck and another 70,000 on my car.
Wow.
Yeah, because Houston is like Atlanta. It's quite large, it's extensive. And I had these rehabs all over I mean, they're all in like multiple counties. So I could only maybe go to like 8 or 9 rehabs a day, right? Spending 1 hour in each rehab. And that's if they're close enough.
Yeah.
So you got 40 something. Like, how do you like go to all this?
Yeah.
Like, I had to have a superintendent that will go, and I had 2 more trucks that we could hold a dumpster, which that, by the way, you will save a ton of money if you buy a dumpster. So just make sure you have a truck that's powerful enough to hold a dumpster, because we were spending, like, think about this, 47 rehabs. Let's say you put a dumpster on each one of them.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And
especially today. I don't know what it was back then, but the cost of dumpsters is pretty high.
We were paying $800 to $900 a dumpster, and that was for 30 days of the dumpster being there, and they could do like up to 1 or 2 loads. I don't remember how many loads they will be able to take, but we went and bought a dumpster that was I forgot the size of it, but it was like a 14 footer that hydraulic that you load everything up, and then we bought a dually truck, which a dually is an overkill for a dumpster now that I know. I wouldn't do it that way. I would just max a 2,500 a truck to hold that dually. But we paid $13,000 for it, and I don't know how many loads we dumped with that dumpster. So it kind of like paid on its own. And then my friends that were rehabbing, they knew I had a driver on the dually with the dumpster, and they would be like, "Hey man, can we hire you for the dumpster?" I was like, "Absolutely." Yeah. So we started like subcontracting the dumpster to my friends and some other rehabbers. But I don't have the truck or the dumpster anymore. But if you're flipping and you're doing 2 to 3 projects, you might as well get you a dumpster with a truck, because the amount of money that you will save on dumpsters is unreal. The only bad thing about it is the landfill trip. It's just nasty. Like it smells horrible. Like, but
and again, that's nothing that I'm willing or want to do. And thank God I have people on my team that are. We actually have a dump trailer, and our project manager has a dump trailer, and he has an F-250 diesel, so he has the capability. He came from roofing, so
Okay, so yeah, he's set up for it.
Yeah, so he already understands. He's the guy that's always telling us we don't need to do this. It costs too much, you know. So thankfully he's financially responsible and handles, which that was a part of the process of selecting him anyway. But yeah, he handles all that. Yeah, we were spending a lot of money on dumpsters for sure.
Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years, Jacob?
Well, so I've already started working on that transition. Not so much because I don't like what I do. I love what I do and enjoy it. I'm still, as Shane would say, the thrill of the hunt. I still love it. I still love doing deals. But I've actually just started getting into the lending space. Another partner and I started a 506c real estate debt fund, because anybody that's been in this business knows when they look at HUD or settlement statements, and you make what you make and you get to see what your lenders are making, and not only what they're making, but they're making doing nothing other than doing a couple of wires. You start to be like, man, I need to be that guy. You know, when you start talking about mailbox money, like owning rentals, you know, everyone calls it passive. I personally don't think it's that passive. From being a landlord, it's not as active as flipping or wholesaling, but I think one of the most passive things you could possibly do is lending, or being a capital investor and lending into something like our fund. But yeah, I'm starting that transition to work on now. Not so much the transition, but just creating that stream. And so that's what I've started to work on. Is my goal in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years, is to probably just lend full time. Obviously, I'll still support the businesses that I'm a part of, but lending is my ultimate goal to be in the next 5 to 10 years.
What do you like the most about lending, other than the fees and things like that?
What I like most about it is how much little time it requires of me, in terms of the actual lending side. Now, granted, we just started, 4 or 5 months ago, so we're pretty heavily in capital raising mode. So I'm doing a lot of in-person meetings, Zoom calls, phone calls with people that are interested in making, returns off of being a part of the fund. But that's not really that much work, to hop on a Zoom call or a phone call and just chat about what our fund structure looks like. But as far as, there's been multiple times I've been on vacation, or, out of the state or wherever I'm at. I just pull out my phone, hit a couple of buttons, send a wire. We make money on the front end. Our lenders, the ones that are capital investors, are making their money. And when it's just like, to have that consistency and not really require much of my time, that's probably the biggest thing. Like being able to devote as much of my time as possible to doing what I want to do, doing what my family wants to do. That's probably the biggest thing I love about it.
What about underwriting? What kind of underwriting you guys do on the deals?
So right now, my partner and I both are doing the underwriting. We eventually will probably scale up and hire someone to help with it. But just because I'm very conservative with my own money, I'm like, 10 times as conservative with someone else's money. So for right now, I'm looking at all the deals. My partner's looking at all the deals. The markets that we're in right now, as far as borrowers we're lending to, are markets we know really well. So we are currently underwriting everything, double checking everything, making sure all the numbers check out. So that's our process. I mean, underwriting we can go way into the weeds on it. Obviously it starts with, comping, or what most lenders would call a BPO. We're doing some due diligence on the property. We're running comps, looking at history. Of course, we're looking at the borrower. We have several check marks they gotta check off in order for us to lend to them.
Can you give me an example of the borrower?
A borrower would be like a fix and flipper.
Yeah, but what are those things that you're looking for on the check marks?
So obviously, we're going to look for liquidity. Do you have any money? Like, we're not asking you necessarily to bring a ton of money to the table, but I need to know that you have some liquidity. So in case your property doesn't sell as quickly as it needs to, or
You can pay the loan. Yeah.
to pay the monthly interest payments. Like, if you're coming to borrow $200,000 from me and you got $5 in your bank, clearly you don't have any money to pay the interest payment that's going to be every month until you can pay me off and sell the property. So we're going to look at stuff like that. We don't go too deep on the credit. Like, we do run soft pull and look at credit, obviously, because we just want to make sure you're not like a professional scammer and going around scamming people and whatever. So those are a couple of the main things. We more so look at the property because it's asset based lending. So we live on the motto of loan to own. So essentially, I'm not going to loan on anything that I'm not comfortable
Willing to own.
back from you. Not that we want to take the property, not that we want to foreclose, because clearly we want you to be successful and be a repeat borrower. But at the end of it all I really care about mostly is the property itself. Like, if I have to foreclose and take this property, I need to make sure I'm taking back something that's worth more than what I gave you. So we're really conservative on what we loan as far as loan to value. To date, we'll go up to 70% LTV, but to date we haven't lent on anything probably over 65%, because these are just type of deals that are out there. Like, these investors are coming across. It's kind of mind blowing at the volume that these deals we're seeing come across our table. So our biggest issue and kind of bottleneck right now is we have more really good deals to fund than we have capital to fund it with.
Good. How can people get a hold of you?
So easiest way would just be through social media. I'm on Facebook, obviously, just Jacob Ninan. Instagram, same thing, jacob.e.ninan. I don't know if there's a place to put my cell phone or email, but those are also other ways you can get a hold of me. I don't know if that'll be in the show notes or whatever, but I can send you all that. I mean, you have all that information. But yeah, I mean, I constantly monitor my email, obviously, and text messages. You can go to our website. The name of our fund is Fund Your Success. So it's fundyoursuccess.com. You can submit any information, whether you're looking for a loan or you're looking to invest so that you can get fixed, returns monthly paid out from our fund.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for being here today. Is there something you want to tell the audience?
Yeah. So I don't know who all from ranges that are listening to this, but I know the biggest issue I had when I first got in real estate was overanalyzing things. So I'll just say to all you out there who are looking to get started or trying to get started, like, obviously we all have points in business, regardless of what business you're in, where you're going to trip, fall, and fall down, but just keep getting up, keep failing forward. Don't get caught up in all the analytical side of it. Just keep pressing forward. And one big thing I will mention, and you can attest to this, Ricardo, because you're a part of some different masterminds when it comes to mentoring and stuff like that. Don't be afraid to find a coach or a mentor. Like, I know a lot of people think that's scammy and comes off scammy, but we didn't go into this part of my journey and Ricardo's journey, but I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the help of mentors and coaches that cut my timeline in half. So you hear I got into real estate late in 2019. Fast forward to 2025, I'm a full-time real estate entrepreneur. I mean, that doesn't happen unless you have people that have gone through certain things that helped you and coached you and cut your timeline in half. So I've spent over six figures on coaching and mentors. People, like I said, people think it's a scam, but it's not. Promise you. You obviously got to do some due diligence and kind of research who you're working with. But I would say just get up, do what you can, and when you can afford it, hire a coach.
That's amazing. Jacob, thank you so much for being here today, brother. Don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe, guys, the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. And make sure you go to our YouTube site, guys, and subscribe. Like, we have about 50% of our viewers on YouTube are not subscribed to the podcast. So that's the way we keep growing, and we can keep showing these videos to a lot of other people. And then we're also on all the different platforms, iTunes, Podbean, you name it. Actually, that's where we got most of the downloads is on the audio side, not on the video side. But don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe. That's how we can continue to do this podcast. We don't have any sponsors to the podcast. This is sponsored by my pockets, basically, and we want to see that we're actually helping someone out there And the way we do that is by seeing our channel grow. So with that being said, Jacob, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.